So I recently read Hammajang Luck by Makana Yamamoto. I was really excited about this book because there were so many things that I personally enjoy in fiction. First of all, it's a science fiction novel. It's very cyberpunk. It features queer characters, and it's a heist book, and I love heist books. So I was really excited to read this. I did, and I have thoughts about it. Hammajang Luck, written by Makina Yamamoto, was published in December of 2024 by Golan's Publishing. The author Yamamoto, they are a queer science fiction writer from Maui, Hawaii. They spent their childhood mostly going back and forth between Hawaii and the mainland. Hammajang Luck is their first novel, and they recently released a second novel in the same world featuring one of the side characters from Hammajang Luck. It's called The Obaki Code, and it actually just came out last month, which is really cool. And that was published by Harper Voyager. Before I get into the main plot points, I want to address the trigger warnings before starting. If any of these are not something you vibe with, not something that you want to read about, please skip this book for your own mental health. The trigger warnings include grief, sexual harassment, alcohol use disorder, tobacco use, explicit sexual content, incarceration, child sickness/cancer, human experimentation, emotional and financial abuse, and then mention of sexual abuse. The plot summary starts like this. Hammajang, adjective, definition: in a disorderly or chaotic state, messed up, chiefly in predicative use, especially in all hammajang. Etymology: a borrowing from Hawaiian pidgin, source Oxford English Dictionary. Edie is done with crime. 8 years behind bars changes a person, costs them too much time with too many of the people who need them most, and it's all Angel's fault. She sold Edie out in what should have been the greatest moment of their lives. Instead, Edie was shipped off to the icy prison planet spinning far below the soaring sky bridges and neon catacombs of Kepler's space station, of home, to spend the best part of a decade alone. But then a chance for early parole appears out of nowhere, and Edie steps into the pallid sunlight to find none other than Angel waiting, and she has an offer. One last job, one last deal, one last target. The trillionaire tech god they failed to bring down last time. There's just one thing Edie needs to do: trust Angel again, which also happens to be the last thing Edie wants to do. What could possibly go all hammajang about this plan? Ocean's 8 meets Blade Runner in this trailblazing debut science fiction novel and swashbuckling love letter to Hawaii about being forced to find a new home and striving to build a better one. Unmissable for fans of Gideon the Ninth by Tamsin Muir and Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. I read this description about a year ago, and it sounded amazing to me. I put it on my TBR, and I'm really behind on that, so I finally got to it, and just all of this sounds so great. I read it, and now I have very mixed feelings about it, and I want to address the things I liked, the things I didn't like, and the things I might have changed about it to make it make more sense to me. I will always end with which people I think would really love this novel, regardless of how I feel about it. Starting off with what I really liked. This book features just a normalization of queer and trans characters. Almost every character in this book is openly queer and proud of it. And I love that this science fiction world kind of supports that, and you see it featured in this novel with complete normalization, no special emphasis. These characters are who they are, and I really enjoy that. Obviously, this has very positive representation of Hawaiian traditions and diction. Pidgin is used a lot between the characters, and I don't really know a lot about it, so it was really cool to read in that dialogue, and I was able to look into more about the terms and stuff because I wasn't really familiar. It was wonderful to see and learn about Hawaiian traditions, and it was something so constant throughout the entire novel. And that is an overarching theme of this book, is that despite what happens in your life, you keep the cultures that you grew up with, you keep the traditions that have been in your family for generations. And I'm so happy to see that that was constant throughout the entire novel. One of my favorite parts of this story. There's quite a bit of socioeconomic and capitalistic commentary throughout this book. So the way this space station works is that there are multiple wards built on top of each other. So Ward 1 on the bottom features all of the poorest with the least amount of resources, and they built up from there until, the top ward has the rich and powerful with all the resources. They have the direct light from their star and stuff like that from the sun. You can really feel the class divide, the wealth gap forever increasing, very reminiscent of the time we live in now. I felt like the book was an allegory of the US colonization of the Hawaiian nation. I'm pretty sure that's what Yamamoto was going for, but that's what I felt throughout the entire book. And Edie, the main character, and her family try desperately to keep their roots and their Hawaiian traditions alive, even though they were not only displaced from Hawaii, they were displaced from the earth itself, still celebrating traditions. And again, I felt that part was really well done. I'm not surprised. Things that I wasn't really a fan of, or what I would have maybe done differently. So as I said before, this is a heist book. They have, one last job. They're gonna try and target this trillionaire tech god one more time. They're gonna try with a whole group of side characters that have special skills of their own. They're hoping that maybe it'll work this time. What I was missing plot-wise with the heist itself is I felt there was a real lack of stakes. I didn't feel like any of these characters were in mortal danger. Throughout, I felt that none of the characters were going to be unalived. I felt like everybody would quote unquote make it out in the end. Personally, that's not the type of heist book I like. I like real stakes. I want danger. I want suspense. I want more. And I definitely think there are readers that would like that. Something with not a crazy amount of stakes. You still want the flavor of a mission, but you're not willing to put yourself through the complete ruin of the characters. Again, I'm used to being completely devastated by how the author treats their characters, of I'm gonna make you love these characters and you're going to feel something deep about them, and then I'm going to ruin their lives. And I don't know, I'm a little sadistic like that. I kind of like being hurt like that. Again, that's kind of a personal preference too. If it was supposed to be a high stakes heist, I did not feel that at all. What really stood out throughout the entire book was the relationship between Edie and Angel and how messy and complicated it was. I honestly think it was borderline toxic at times, because again, all Edie knew, and this is completely in Edie's point of view, all Edie knew was that Angel sold her out, and all the blame was put on Edie, which is why she was in prison for 8 years, and she felt completely betrayed. This person was their best friend. And I think having the novel in Edie's point of view does a disservice to Angel's character and the side characters as well. We are only seeing things through Edie's eyes, and it becomes difficult because she's been in prison for 8 years, and that changes a person, obviously. We are introduced to Angel as this sister figure for Edie and her sister Andy. They've been best friends, like sisters, throughout their lives. We only know who Angel is through Edie. She throughout the novel too, she feels cold, very calculated, very driven, very revenge driven, and that makes her seem unfeeling, inhuman. She maintains that for a good portion of the book. She has little bits of, anger outbursts and things like that, but this girl is completely, tunnel visioned. She's only focused on getting revenge on this trillionaire tech god. And she spent the last 8 years infiltrating his business, becoming his right hand and things like that. And she's created this entire plan in her head, and nothing can really sway her from that. And she seeks Edie out because Edie is the best at her job. She knows the most about Kepler. She knows its ins and outs. It's kind of a family business. So she seeks Edie out like, hey, like, I know I did that, but I need your help and I can bribe you for it. We're gonna make a lot of money, but you're the best at this. And she's kind of like, I'm here to pick you up. Regardless of, what happened, I need you to focus. I need you to do this for me. We get that a lot throughout the book. She's confused on why Angel acts like this. She still feels betrayed. Angel feels like a completely different person, which makes sense to me because it's been 8 fucking years. But there comes a point around 80% of the novel where Angel kind of breaks and they have a physical reconnection, a sexual reconnection. You feature Angel kind of letting go, her being affectionate. They have some kind of reconciliation towards the end, and because Angel, through Edie's eyes, Angel felt so unfeeling, so inhuman, the complete 180 once they reconciled was very jarring to me. And this might be a bit harsh, but I felt like her character was completely assassinated for the sake of this romance. And I felt that was kind of tough. Like, throughout the book, I really liked Angel, even though we knew practically nothing about her. And I wanted to know more about her. And I feel like if we had a little bit more POVs of the side characters and Angel, I felt like we would have gotten a more well-rounded experience. And their relationship was low-key toxic. It didn't feel healthy. The relationship they had benefited neither of them. So I didn't root for them to be together. I wanted a completely different ending. And I'm going to talk about that ending in a little bit. In that same vein, I felt like there was a lack of side character development. They were featured, again, all through Edie's point of view, but I would have loved to have a little bit more background on them because those characters were so interesting too. Very different from each other, very distinguishable, which I enjoyed. My biggest gripe was the ending of this book. I wouldn't have chosen this as the ending because a big overarching theme was the main character struggling with choosing power, influence, money over the people in their lives. Which one is more important to them? Which one will stay with them regardless? Which one is more meaningful? And I've read a lot of books like this. Some of my favorite, one of a trilogy that I really love deals with this very in depth, where we have, one character who strives to become, influential, powerful at the expense of everyone around them. They become isolated, friendless, no family.
I'm 27 years old. I've no money and no prospects.
And they're sitting on the top, but with no one with them. And then you have another character who makes sure that they take care of their family, their friends. And then with the other character, we see sort of the flip side, where they choose people over power. They choose their friends and their family and the meaningful relationships, and that fulfills them more than any amount of money, any amount of influence. And I really like the dichotomy of that. I love exploring that. I felt that this book had that for a little bit. I wanted to feel that struggle more. Edie, at the end of the day, has to choose. She, breaks out of prison. She comes back and sees her sister, her nieces and nephews for the first time in 8 years. She has a lot to catch up on. She wants to feel that connection with them again. Edie comes back from prison and they live with their sister and their nieces and nephews again. And there was just a lot of lost time, a lot of missing parts of their relationships. Their niece and nephew have, grown up without them. And this whole time, neither their sister Andy or the children know what Edie is planning. As far as they know, Edie is going to get an honest job with an honest pay to help support them and the children. Andy is also pregnant with her 3rd child. The father of these children is a deadbeat, so it's only her supporting these 3 kids. And she was hoping that, Edie comes back, they become close again. Edie finds a stable job with a stable income, going straight, you know what I'm saying? They could work together and become a family again. So throughout this book, Edie is planning a heist with Angel and the rest of the characters under Andy's nose. They know nothing. Edie goes out for hours at a time, you know, at night, telling Andy, hey, you know, I am talking to Angel again. She's helping me get a stable job, and Andy's so excited for them. Edie the whole time is lying. They sneak off with Angel to plan this heist and is leaving. They're leaving Andy alone again with the children. As far as Edie is concerned, what if this heist goes well, they will gain a lot of money, and they feel like, oh, as soon as I have this money, I can lift my family out of poverty. Everything is going to work out fine. So they're so laser focused on that they're missing key parts of Andy and the children's day-to-day life. They're not present. So I kind of went through this. I really thought that the ending was going to be a journey of Edie choosing her family, putting her family's best interest in mind, even if the heist doesn't work. I thought that we were going down that path, and we didn't. And I didn't like that. It made me feel icky. What actually happens, though, is that this heist works this heist works almost completely as planned. Nobody gets unalived. They get the money. They do get caught, but after they get the money. What I liked was that Angel was the one that took the fall for everyone and is like, hey, I did all of this, punish me instead, which was a good decision on the author's part to do, because it aligned with Angel's character. Angel was so revenge focused, and once she got her revenge, once everything was completed, there was nothing left to her character. There was nothing left for her to do. This was her only mission. So now that she has nothing, or she feels that she has nothing, felt like the right thing to do was to take the fall for everybody else, because everybody else has something to live for and she really doesn't anymore. But anyways, in the end, everybody gets like $1 billion. So Edie in the end becomes a billionaire, very similar to the trillionaire tech god that they just swindled, right? And you get that feeling towards the end of like, Edie's, you know, wearing nice new clothes. She's, you know, paying for everything. Everything is right and good again with her family. You know, the whole part about, you know, Edie not being there for them emotionally and mentally, it's kind of like, oh, it's fine. Money is solving all our problems. Great. I don't like it. I thought we were going somewhere else, and I was wrong. Because I did not love this ending, I do have plot points that I would have done differently to make this make more sense. And when Angel takes the fall, she only gets 3 fucking years in prison. That's it. They do the same freaking thing 8 years ago, and Edie gets 8 years, which is a lot more significant than 3 years. Like, people live whole lives in that amount of time. So I felt like, you know, she didn't go to prison long enough. Like, it didn't feel as impactful. She'll be out in 3 years and then they get to live their freaking lives. Like, okay. I wanted more tragedy. I wanted more impact. In my head, I would have wanted Angel to be in prison longer, because then that gives both characters a chance to reflect on their decisions. It gives Edie a chance to figure herself out from being in prison for 8 years. I don't feel any trauma from that. I don't see a lot of trauma from that. Maybe she needs to do some development, get into therapy, whatever she needs to do. The second thing I would have done is to build up some of these side characters, get us to really love them, really feel for them, really feel like we know them, and then we unalive one of them. Put one of them in like mortal danger, because I feel like that would have made the heist seem more dangerous. It would have given me suspense. Like, a heist book is supposed to make you feel suspense. It's supposed to make you feel fear. Like, I didn't feel that at all. Like, I knew everything was gonna work out fine. And essentially, in the end, like, I would have had Edie still, like, get a good chunk of money to be able to help with the, you know, immediate financial crises with their family. All I wanted was Edie to realize, you know, the importance of family and of being there for your family, and see a little bit of that, of them stepping into a role of provider and support. In the end, I gave it a 3 stars on Goodreads and a 2.5 stars on Fable. I liked it. Overall, like, it was very easy to read. I felt like most times I was having fun. The things that I mentioned detracted like a little bit from my enjoyment, but again, I think it's a solid book. The few things I would tweak, you know, a lot of that, again, all of this is my personal opinion, right? I think readers who want to read a fiction book featuring Hawaiian or Pacific Islander characters, again, I think that was one of the best parts of this book. If that is something you want to read or you feel like you're lacking in your current curriculum, I would pick this book up. It was very good in that respect. Those who want to read a science fiction book featuring queer characters, this is the book for you. There's queerness everywhere, and I absolutely loved it. And the normalization of queerness featured in this book, I thought it was great. Anybody who wants to read something like that, I would pick up this book. It would be, yes, you'll love it. Lastly, if you want a story with I don't want to say a guaranteed happy ending, but you are not a big fan of, if you're not a big fan of like soul crushing heist tragedy, you know, struggle books, and you want, you know, a flavor of heist without real stakes, I also think that this book would be for you. It wasn't really for me, but there are readers out there that really want that, and I'm happy for you. I'm just happy that you are reading something. In the end, I'm glad I read it. I do own the book. I'm glad that I was able to pick this up and really dive deep. All in all, like, I had a time. I had a good time. And I'm unsure if I'm going to read the next one. Again, we get a lot more of one of the side characters that really interested me. So maybe I'll pick that up, maybe not. I'm not sure. But yeah, that's all I have to say, and I'll see you next time.